Tonight's episode contains descriptions of violent assault, injury, and death. Listener discretion is strongly advised. It was just after 9 o'clock on a warm August night in Owen Sound, Ontario. 3 men left a small downtown restaurant without paying their bill. A simple act of disrespect that would, within minutes, turn into something far worse. Outside, 44-year-old Sharif Rahman, the restaurant's owner, followed them into the street, not to fight, but to reason. Moments later, he lay unconscious on the wet pavement, his head striking the ground with the sound one witness would later describe as a bowling ball falling from 6 feet in the air, a man known for peace, killed over a $150 meal. I'm Mark, and this is Northern Dark, True Canadian Crime. Tonight, the death of Sharif Rahman, a story of community, conscience, and a search for justice that crossed an ocean. It was Friday night, August 17th, 2023, a humid summer evening in the quiet downtown core of Owen Sound, Ontario, the kind of night when most restaurants are cleaning up, cashing out, and heading home. But inside a small Bangladeshi restaurant called The Curry House, the work wasn't over yet. In the kitchen, Adnan Hussain was closing down for the night. He'd only been in Canada for a short time, having come from Bangladesh to work with his friend and employer, Sharif Rahman. He remembered that Sharif was cheerful that day. It had been a slow evening, but the restaurant had regulars, a few late tables, and familiar faces. Then, near closing time, 3 men walked in. They ordered tandoori chicken and naan, chatting casually, while Sharif moved from the counter to the kitchen, checking on things, smiling in his usual quiet way. To Hussain, it seemed ordinary. But soon after, things shifted. The men didn't finish their food. They began glancing toward the door. One of them said something, quick, under his breath. Then, all 3 stepped outside. Hussain didn't think much of it at first. Maybe they were smoking or taking a call. But then he heard Sharif's voice. It wasn't angry. It was concerned, questioning. "Come back inside. Please, come pay your bill." The total was around $150. It wasn't about the money. For Sharif, it was about respect, about fairness. Hussain stepped out from the kitchen door. He saw Sharif following the men down 2nd Avenue East, calling after them. One of the men turned. Words were exchanged. The air changed. Hussain ran toward them, trying to help. He saw Sharif reach for one of the men's arms, just to stop him, to reason. But then, the other 2 came back. Hussain would later tell CBC that he was grappling with one man when he heard the sound. 2 objects colliding, a deep, hollow crack. Like a bowling ball falling from 6 feet in the air. He looked up and saw Sharif on the ground, motionless. The tall man, the one who'd thrown the punch, turned and ran. Hussain tried to chase him, but was shoved down hard onto the wet concrete. By the time he got back up, the men were gone, sprinting toward a gray Ford Escape idling on the corner. The street fell silent again. Just rain and the hum of neon lights. Hussain knelt beside Sharif. He called his name, no response. He called 911. Within minutes, police cruisers and paramedics were on scene. Officers found 44-year-old Sharif Rahman lying unconscious on the pavement outside his own restaurant, blood pooling beneath his head. Adnan Hussain told them everything he could remember: the tall suspect, the rain, the brief scuffle, the sound. Sharif was rushed first to Grey Bruce Health Services, then airlifted to London, Ontario, where doctors placed him on life support. In those early hours, no one knew if he would survive. But inside that hospital room, his wife Shaela Nasreen and their daughter waited, praying that the man who had given so much to their community would wake up. He never did. Sharif Rahman died a week later, on August 24th, 2023. What began as a dine and dash had become a homicide. His death would shock the city of Owen Sound and set off a search for answers that would stretch across continents. Before the headlines, before the vigils, before his name became a symbol. There was just Sharif Rahman, a husband, a father, a man who believed that kindness mattered. He was born in Bangladesh, in a small, close-knit community where neighbors looked after one another and faith shaped the rhythm of life. His family valued education, humility, and service, lessons that would stay with him forever. As a boy, Sharif was curious, thoughtful, the kind of student who stayed after class to help others understand the lesson. Teachers remembered him not for ambition, but for compassion. He went on to study economics, drawn to the idea that fairness and opportunity could lift people out of hardship. But he wasn't content to stay still. He wanted to see the world, to understand how other communities worked, and maybe one day to build something of his own. His journey led him to Scotland, where he earned a master's degree in international development at the University of Glasgow. There, in the midst of cold winters and crowded lecture halls, he met Shaila Nasreen, another student from Bangladesh with the same quiet strength and warmth. They married, united by shared values, compassion, family, and the dream of building a better life somewhere they could call their own. In 2013, they immigrated to Canada, choosing the lakeside city of Owen Sound, Ontario. It wasn't a big place, just a quiet community surrounded by fields, forests, and water. The kind of town where people waved to each other on the street. For Sharif and Shaila, it was perfect. He once said he wanted to raise his daughter somewhere peaceful. A place, he told friends, where you can work hard and sleep with your door unlocked. 2 years later, they opened the Curry House, a small restaurant on 2nd Avenue East. It started modestly, a few tables, warm light, and the smell of spices from home. Sharif ran the kitchen himself, serving plates of biryani, tandoori chicken, naan, and lentil soup, simple meals that carried the taste of Bangladesh. But the food was only part of what made people come back. It was Sharif's presence, his calm smile, the way he made you feel welcome the moment you stepped inside. He asked about people's families, remembered their favorite dishes, and often stayed late after closing just to chat. For students at Georgian College, the Curry House became a refuge, a place to work, to talk, to feel seen. Sharif hired international students who needed jobs, and sometimes even lent them money between paychecks. Upstairs, above the restaurant, he rented a small apartment to new families who couldn't yet find housing. If rent was late, he never made a fuss. "Pay when you can," he'd say. Beyond the restaurant, Sharif volunteered his time. He joined the YMCA of Owen Sound and Grey Bruce, where he helped with settlement and language programs for newcomers. He supported the Canadian Mental Health Association and the Arden ESL Language School, donating meals and helping organize community events. Those who worked alongside him said he never wanted recognition. He just wanted to help. He had this way of making people feel calm, said a friend from the local community center. If there was a problem, he didn't raise his voice. He just listened until things made sense. Again, Sharif believed deeply in gratitude, in the idea that if life gave you a chance, you had a duty to give something back. At home, he was a devoted husband and father. He adored his wife, Shaila, and their young daughter, Shaika. He'd make her breakfast on weekends, eggs, fruit, and toast with honey, before heading to the restaurant. After long shifts, he'd come home smelling of curry and smoke, tired but still smiling. He loved gardening in the narrow strip of soil behind the restaurant, growing mint, basil, and coriander he used in his dishes. When he spoke of Bangladesh, it was with warmth, of mango trees after rain, of his parents' laughter, of the songs his mother used to hum. But Canada had become home. He often told friends, "This country gave us peace. We must give peace back." By 2023, the Curry House was thriving. Locals knew it as one of the friendliest restaurants in Owen Sound, not because of its menu, but because of the man who ran it. To regulars, Sharif wasn't just a business owner. He was a neighbor, a listener, a friend. He had built everything he dreamed of, a family, a business, and a community that respected him deeply. And then came the Thursday night in August, a night like any other, until 3 strangers walked through his doors. When the streets of Owen Sound went quiet again that August night, Sharif Rahman lay unconscious on the pavement outside his restaurant. The men who attacked him, gone. their plates of half-eaten food still warm inside the curry house. Police arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Paramedics rushed Sharif to the local hospital, then to London, Ontario, where he was placed on life support. A week later, on August 24, 2023, his heart stopped. He was 44 years old. What began as a dine and dash over a $150 bill had become a homicide. From the start, investigators faced a mystery. There were no clear suspects, no license plate number, and just seconds of grainy surveillance video of two men running down the rain-slicked street, one in orange, one in blue, and a gray Ford Escape speeding away. The Owen Sound Police Service, a small force serving a city of barely 21,000, was suddenly at the center of a major criminal investigation. They called in the Ontario Provincial Police Criminal Investigation Branch, along with Forensic Identification Services, the Office of the Chief Coroner, and the Ontario Forensic Pathology Service. Officers canvassed local businesses, seizing camera footage and collecting more than 100 tips from the public. A cook at the restaurant, Adnan Hussein, told CBC he saw part of the assault. He described three men leaving without paying, Sharif chasing after them, and a struggle in the street. He remembered hearing a single sound, like two hard objects colliding, before seeing his friend collapse. He was completely silent, Hussein said. He didn't move. At first, police released only the surveillance stills, images that showed the suspects running and the vehicle fleeing north along 2nd Avenue East. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no arrests, no updates, and no answers. The city's grief turned to frustration. Why weren't the police saying more? Who were the men who killed Sharif Rahman? And where were they? Then, quietly, detectives began to piece together what had happened. Through international intelligence channels and tips from the community, investigators learned that the suspects had fled Canada within days of the attack. They boarded flights from Toronto Pearson Airport, heading for the United Kingdom. The case took on a global dimension. Working with Interpol Ottawa, police in Scotland, and the UK's National Crime Agency, Canadian authorities tracked the men to Edinburgh and Dalkeith, Scotland. After nearly a year of silence, the breakthrough came. In July 2024, police arrested two men. They were Robert Evans, 24, charged with manslaughter, and his father, Robert Busby Evans, 47, charged with accessory after the fact. 3 months later, in October, a third man was taken into custody named Barry Evans, 54, the older brother of Robert Busby, who is also charged as an accessory. The three were citizens of the United Kingdom, visiting Canada on temporary visas at the time of the killing. For months, police had kept their identities secret, even after the arrests, citing the international complexity of the case and the risk of compromising extradition efforts. When the Owen Sound Police and OPP finally stepped before the cameras in December 2024, they confirmed what the city had long suspected. The suspects had left the country almost immediately after the assault. Detective Inspector Jane Conway called it one of the most complex cases of her career, spanning multiple countries, jurisdictions, and agencies. Behind her, photos of Sharif Rahman glowed on a small screen, smiling beside his wife and daughter. The arrests brought relief, but not closure. The accused men remained in custody in Scotland, fighting extradition. They were, as investigators would later reveal in court, part of a traveler community based near Manchester, England. Their time in Canada had not been random. They had entered the country using false names and spent the summer running a cash-only paving business, moving from town to town. According to police affidavits filed in the Scottish court, the younger Evans, Robert Jr., had thrown the fatal punch. His uncle Barry had ordered him to run, then driven him more than 60 kilometers to Collingwood, while his father, Robert Sr., arranged an airline ticket back to the United Kingdom. The following day, Robert Jr. boarded a plane to Heathrow Airport. His uncle flew to Glasgow. His father left a few days later. Within a week, all three were gone. Back in Owen Sound, Sharif's family waited. It would take another full year before hearings began in Edinburgh Sheriff Court, as Canadian prosecutors sought to bring the three men home to stand trial. The hearings revealed fragments of the case that Canadians had never been told, that the accused were relatives, that they had used aliases. That one had gone so far as to remove his name and vehicle registration from a hotel log to cover their trail. The details painted a picture not of panic, but of planning. Owen Sound, Police Chief Craig Ambrose called the investigation unconventional and the secrecy necessary. We were dealing, he said, with a case that reached across borders and into an entirely different justice system. For Sharif's widow, Shayela Nasreen, the wait has been excruciating. In a statement read by an officer at the press briefing, she said, "Although it is a complicated case, I have faith in the rule of law. I've been waiting patiently since August 17th, 2023, and I believe justice will be served for my husband. Today, all three accused remain in custody overseas. The extradition process, a slow and deliberate legal battle, continues in Scotland. And in Owen Sound, the table by the window at the Curry House remains empty." The night Sharif Rahman died, the lights in downtown Owen Sound burned late. People walked quietly past the Curry House, some stopping to leave flowers or cards in the doorway. Others just stood in silence, watching the glow from the kitchen that once felt like home. In the days that followed, grief became something shared, a language the entire city seemed to speak. On August 25th, 2023, just hours after the news broke that Sharif had passed away, a group of residents gathered at the Owen Sound Farmers Market. Organizer Brittany Knight called it a healing drum circle. When we heard about the attack, I said to my husband, "I think we need to bring people together," she told Bayshore News. "We need to send some light and love to his family." Dozens came, parents, children, strangers, standing in a wide circle, drums in hand. In the weeks that followed, vigils filled the streets of downtown Owen Sound. Hundreds marched with candles from the Curry House to the city's market square. On the day of Sharif's funeral, mourners lined the route from the Owen Sound Mosque to Greenwood Cemetery, waving small Bangladeshi flags, a sea of red and green against the gray sky. People who had never met him came to pay respects. Store owners closed early. Restaurants along the main street dimmed their lights in solidarity. A GoFundMe campaign launched by local realtor Mark Barbosa set an initial goal of $25,000. Within days, it had raised 10 times that amount, and by the end, more than $250,000 from over 3,000 donors. Barbosa wrote, "Anyone who knows Sharif knows he embodies peace and love to all. He's always there to help anyone who needs it." Every dollar went to his wife Shayela and their daughter to help keep the Curry House alive and pay for expenses after his death. In late 2023, as the restaurant reopened, the tables filled again, not just with customers, but with neighbors who wanted to show they still cared. "We had so many people calling, saying they wanted to come," one staff member said. "It was overwhelming, in a good way." Then came the tributes. In November 2023, the YMCA of Owen Sound Grey Bruce posthumously awarded Sharif its annual Peace Medal, honoring those who build peace through community action. The ceremony was quiet, attended by local leaders, friends, and family. Sharif's wife Shayela and daughter Shaika accepted the medal on his behalf. "I wish Sharif was here to see how much this community loved him," she said softly. The YMCA CEO Sarah Cowley told the audience, "He sat on our board before the pandemic. He supported our settlement and language services, our employment programs, and our community initiatives. He leaves a lasting legacy of compassion and care." Committee member Michael McLuhan added, "Sharif inspired all of us through his humble, quiet efforts to be good and to do good. He never wanted recognition. He simply wanted to help." Months later, the tributes continued. In October 2024, a young oak tree was planted outside the Julie MacArthur Regional Recreation Center in his memory. About 50 people gathered under a cool autumn sky as the wind pulled at the tree's golden leaves. A bronze plaque at its base read, "In memory of Sharif Rahman, whose gentle and unwavering love for his family left an enduring mark on our hearts. May his legacy of kindness and compassion inspire generations to come." His wife and daughter stood nearby, surrounded by friends and neighbors. "I don't have enough words to express my gratitude," Shayela told the crowd. "This is an honor. These are the things I will tell my daughter about her father." The oak wasn't the only way the city remembered him. The Community Foundation. Grey Bruce launched the Sharif Rahman Memorial Scholarship Fund to support local students inspired by his dedication to newcomers and youth. And during the Festival of Northern Lights that winter, a glowing art display appeared downtown. Silhouettes of people holding hands, shining in white and gold. It was called the Circle of Peace. Organizers said it symbolized the community's unity after his death. 2 years later, the Curry House still stands on 2nd Avenue East. If you walk by at night, you'll see its warm yellow light spilling onto the sidewalk, just as it did when Sharif was there. Inside, his wife still greets customers with a soft smile. Their daughter sometimes helps set the tables. Life moves forward, but the space he left behind never really closed. A friend and former board member once said, "He taught us that peace isn't about speeches or awards. It's about how you treat people when no one's looking." And in Owen Sound, those words have stayed, written on notes, whispered in kitchens, echoed in prayer. A reminder that even in tragedy, one man's kindness can outlive the violence that took him away. It's strange, isn't it? How a story like this starts so small, a quiet street, a restaurant closing for the night, and then suddenly, an entire community changes forever.
Yeah, there's something about how ordinary it was that makes it hit harder. It wasn't planned. It wasn't a robbery. It was just one awful moment that never should have happened.
You can picture it. The lights still on, the smell of food in the air, a few people finishing their meals. It could have been any restaurant in any small town.
That's what gets me. The Curry House wasn't just where he worked. It was where he made people feel seen. You could walk in as a stranger and leave feeling like a neighbor.
Yeah, and he hired students who needed work, helped new families get on their feet, even lent money when someone was short. That's the kind of man he was.
And the town never forgot it. The vigils, the drum circle, the memorial tree. You could feel how much he meant to them.
That oak tree outside the recreation center. It's such a fitting symbol. Roots, strength, and patience. His wife said, "These are the things I'll tell my daughter about him." That line says everything.
She's still running the restaurant, too. Still welcoming people. That kind of courage doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from love.
Yeah, and keeping that space alive, that's its own kind of justice.
You could see that same spirit in how the community responded. The GoFundMe that was started for his family, it didn't just meet its goal. It raised over $250,000. People from all across Canada donated.
And that's the thing, most of those people never met Sharif. They just recognized the kind of person he was. All the kindness he gave out over the years came back to his family when they needed it most.
It's kind of poetic, really. The man who spent years feeding his community, quietly helping everyone, and in the end, that same generosity came right back to him.
Yeah, it's proof that good people still outnumber the bad ones.
And his wife? She said something at the tree dedication that really stayed with me. Time never waits for anyone, but I'll keep trying to survive. There's strength in that.
It's not just an Owen Sound story either. You see this kind of thing in small towns all across Canada, and the same heartbreak, but also the same compassion that rises afterward.
The legal side is still moving forward. The 3 men charged are in Scotland, waiting on extradition. It's slow, but she still believes in the process and in the rule of law.
That kind of faith, that's what peace looks like when you refuse to let hate win.
Before we wrap up, we just want to say thank you to everyone who's been following Northern Dark, and especially those of you who've subscribed on YouTube and joined the conversation with us on X. Your support honestly keeps us going.
Yeah, it really does. Every time someone comments, shares an episode, or even just sends a kind message, we see it, and we appreciate it more than you probably know.
If you haven't yet, you can find us on YouTube and X and just search Northern Dark True Canadian Crime. We post new episodes, shorts, and updates on the cases we cover.
And maybe that's the takeaway tonight. Check in on your neighbors. Support the small places that make your community feel like home. That's what Sharif believed in.
New episodes drop every Monday, so make sure you're following, sharing, and subscribed.
See you next Monday. Until then, take care of each other.